Well, hello there. This is Vitriol, the chess noob, learning and having fun with chess. Today, I want to have a chat about the Wayward Queen Attack. And this came about because I recently played against my sort of new Brazilian friend, where they played the Wayward Queen Attack against me. I'm not entirely sure how we matched up. They're just rated 900, probably a chess.com glitch. But I thought it's worthwhile to have a look at this again. So the Wayward Queen Attack is basically where white plays after the double king's pawn opening, so e4, e5, they play queen h4. And the goal potentially is to then aim for a scholar's mate type idea. Now this opening is surprisingly popular at the very early beginner level. So according to Lichess, the community database, if you limit it just to the lowest rating category, which is average of ELO 400, you will see that around 10% of games from this position, from the double king's pawn opening, enters the Wayward Queen Attack. However, once we get into intermediate levels, so let's say rated on average 1800 and above on Lichess, you will see it's basically 0%. So it rounds to 0%. It is almost never played. So why is that? Fundamentally, it's just not very good. Let's have a look at this game and we'll sort of explore some of the thinking and ideas as we go through. So Wayward Queen Attack. What white is potentially doing here, so why not play the more typical bishop's opening and then the queen? So what's going on here? Well, the idea potentially behind that is that the Wayward Queen Attack is sort of like one step of abstraction beyond that of the scholar's mate. And by having the queen out first, it invites black to potentially blunder against you. So the thing to realize is people often get freaked out here, and so may want to immediately attack the queen. Really what white wants to do is to try to get, black to play G6. You can see here, absolute disaster. And it's disaster because the queen is also attacking that e-pawn on e5, check, and with that open diagonal, it captures the rook. End of game right here, at least potentially. That's what white is potentially trying to induce. And so the way we play as black is we just have to defend that pawn. So the way I would normally recommend is to develop the queen's knight. Defends the pawn, develops a piece, very, very good. However, there's actually several ways to play here. You could play d6, that's perfectly all right. And in fact, knight to f6, attack on the queen, allow this check, is actually completely all right too. After this check, you block the check with the bishop, and basically you're giving up that pawn for early development. That queen kind of doesn't really have much of a target, and you can now immediately attack the queen. So what it might look like is knight, that comes with check, block the check, it's not entirely clear what white should do here. Next move, you develop the other knight and you start winning tempo. That's actually completely all right too. And this is one of the problems with the Wayward Queen Attack. There's just so many ways, and it's a fairly simple way for black to refute the opening attack. So as I said, I would normally recommend queen's knight, develop and also defend the pawn. Here, for the player of the white pieces, they're almost always going to develop their bishop to c4, looking to potentially get that immediate scholar's mate. And here, the simplest thing to do is just to play g6. So g6 attacks the queen. There is no longer a scholar's mate. We start to win tempo. And here, white basically doesn't have an attack really anymore. So one of the best moves for white here is to undevelop their queen. Basically, pull out of the Wayward Queen attack and just accept a kind of a slowed, loss of tempo, so single lost step of the bishop's opening, where, you induced black to play potentially a kingside fianchetto. That's fine for black, but, black probably didn't want to play that. And so you get a relative compensation in that you sort of force black to play a move that bishop's kind of blocked in by their own bishop. And that's potentially okay too. So queen all the way back is probably, from a strategic perspective, white's best move. However, most people who play the Wayward Queen attack will want to give a second attempt with the scholar's mate. So they'll play queen to f3. Basically, another attempt. And here we've got a couple of very easy moves for black. So I normally would play the knight to f6, develop another piece. Potentially there's an attack there. Normal development, very, very good. That's what I would usually play. The other option is actually play queen to f6, potentially inviting a trade of queens. And if white trades queens, you now develop with tempo. Brilliant. So either of those is fine. Very commonly here, at this point, white will no longer play accurately, especially if they're in the beginner stages. It's not necessarily clear what they should be doing. What they need to know is that they need to really defend the d4 square, because that knight wants to jump to attack the queen and also to attack the c2 square, which comes with an absolute fork of the king and rook. That's a very, very powerful square for the queen's knight. And in fact, it's on, I think, page 38 of my new book, 50+2, Chess Quick Wins, one of the tactical motifs, tactical themes of early quick wins. Check it out on Amazon. So the best moves here for white is probably knight to e2, defends that square, also gets the king ready to potentially short castle, or you could play c3 as well. Either of those moves are kind of okay, defending the d4 square. In this game, white didn't know what to do, developed their knight to the edge of the board, straight up mistake. And here we see knight forward, attacking the queen, attacking the pawn, and basically white needs now, it's really forced to undevelop the queen back to d8. That is by far their best move. However, there's a concept called the sunk cost fallacy. It's a type of cognitive bias where, white, having spent, one and now two moves on the queen, just feel constrained, feel like they can't undevelop the queen. It feels like they've lost all those moves. So it feels compelled as a sunk cost to keep the queen in play. They can try that, but it's almost always a mistake. And so here, white plays queen to d3. It's an inaccuracy. And in fact, let's have a look. Yep, according to Stockfish evaluation, it's now minus 4.3. So by move 6, white is completely losing. And this is one of the problems, basically, with the Wayward Queen attack. Well, some of the best moves involves either just undeveloping the queen, or if you're not going to do that, you have to play extremely accurately, and that's actually really hard to do, while black has a lot more latitude on how they play. Now, in this position, the best move for black, so the best way to continue refuting the Wayward Queen attack is d5. d5 is often a really, really good move, and it's part of the general idea of opening principles. If you can take the full center with pawns in the opening, it's often good to do so, because you can see captures, they can't take back because it's defended by the queen. However, in this position, I had a sense, I knew that that was an inaccurate move. I had a sense that white was now wavering. So a way to potentially play these openings when the opponent tries to play an aggressive attack, it's forced to pull back, is that you can keep making forcing aggressive moves, especially when they're psychologically vulnerable. Because if you keep making forcing aggressive moves, forcing the opponent to respond to your aggression, forcing them to defend, for the opponent, it feels like they're being led. It feels like losing. And if they ever make a mistake, and by making these forcing moves, you're often creating opportunities for them to make a mistake, that mistake could be a blunder, will often lead to emotional damage.
Emotional damage!
And you'll win. So here, as I said, best move by far is d5. However, I'm going to play b5, an aggressive, speculative move. You can see Stockfish's that's best. Aggressive, speculative move, immediately attacking their bishop. Okay. Now here, if they think about this in sort of in a calm, cold, sober frame of mind, they realize, hey, that's okay. I can capture with the bishop. They'll take back with the knight, and then I'll take with the queen. That's fine. You know, I'm trading a bishop for their knight, a very powerful, active knight for a knight and pawn. That's a good trade. It's perfectly okay. However, in the setting that they're already a bit rattled, and I'm trying to psychologically rattle them, they feel, oh no, it's being attacked. That pawn is defended. Don't want to trade my bishop for a pawn. I'm going to have to move the bishop. Where am I going to move it to? Here, they pull that back. So I forced their queen to make several moves in the opening, and now I'm forcing their bishop to make repeated moves. Whenever you can make the opponent move the same piece several times in the opening, you're almost certainly winning advantage in development because they're losing tempo. So what to next? Again, if you can take the full center of pawns, you should do so. d5 here is still the best move, but I play another aggressive, speculative move, seeing white playing that sort of defensive, hesitant move. I now jam the c pawn forward. c5. Now, both these moves aren't bad technically. They're inaccurate, but black is still comfortably ahead. In fact, it's better than what Stockfish says here at higher depth. The goal, of course, is to push the c pawn again, threatening a fork there, and I'm sure white could see that coming. So again, it looks like, gee, am I going to get my bishop trapped? So now they're thinking, I need to move the bishop a second time and decide, okay, they're moving at another time here to d5. Here I can just straight up capture. There's no problems there, no trading my knight for the bishop. Looks like they're attacking that rook. No problems. I wasn't going to move that rook anyway. But push the c pawn forward. Again, aggressive counterattacks, forcing white to respond, making them, feel like they're losing, giving them opportunities to make a mistake. c4. Attacking the queen. Obviously, they need to move the queen, but where are they going to move it to? And here, white cracks under pressure. They play queen e3. It's a blunder. Can you see why? That's right. This knight on d4 is very powerful because it does attack the c2 pawn, the c2 square. And of course, now we've got a very, very lovely family fork. The knight captures the c2 pawn with check, family fork. Next move, they're going to lose the queen. It's a problem with having your queen out early. Good game. GG. The big takeaway from this game is that no matter how fun the Wayward Queen Attack is as a beginner in grabbing a few quick wins, at some point you have to retire it. It just isn't any good, and it doesn't work at the intermediate level. If you love quick wins like I do, it's time to learn some other tactical approaches and try to play potentially some other opening gambits that work into the intermediate level and beyond. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.